A'ja Wilson was always the smiling face of the WNBA, calm, confident, and unshakable. Or so we thought. In just one moment, that image cracked, and a secret 2-year shoe deal changed everything. Most fans never saw it coming, especially since they'd spent months tearing Caitlyn Clark apart for jumping the line. Now everyone's asking the same question. Was this all part of a bigger plan that A'ja silently allowed to unfold? The real story goes far beyond brand deals and social media chatter. It involves accusations of betrayal, unexpected alliances, and a league in the midst of a power shift. Because if there's one lesson to learn here, it's this. Staying silent isn't always about humility. It can be a power move, and it might just dictate the future of women's basketball. For the longest time, A'ja Wilson was the league's golden role model. Unstoppable on the court, gracious off it, and seemingly above any drama. She'd won trophies, broken records, and given fans a bright, smiling face they could root for. When people talked about her, they praised her leadership and warmth. But while the WNBA world was busy putting A'ja on a pedestal, something else was unfolding in the shadows. Caitlyn Clark burst onto the scene with unstoppable drives, pinpoint passes, and a shot that defied logic. She drew record-breaking crowds, commanded national headlines, and racked up accomplishments that most veterans never achieve in their entire careers. Normally, this kind of moment would unite fans in celebration. Yet from day one, Caitlyn was hit with sharp elbows, social media jabs, and a barrage of criticism for just being too good, too fast. That's when A'ja Wilson's halo began to slip. A fresh controversy suggested that while fans raged at Nike for disrespecting A'ja, she had secretly secured her own signature shoe deal 2 whole years ago. Everything that fans thought they knew about the conflict suddenly felt staged, and as each new detail came to light, more questions emerged. How long had she known? Why did she keep it quiet? And what did she stand to gain? Months before Caitlyn Clark's rumored shoe collaboration with Nike, A'ja Wilson's followers went on a full-on rampage. They demanded an explanation from the brand. How could Nike overlook the WNBA's biggest star? Where was A'ja's sneaker? How dare they give a newcomer her own line before a 2-time MVP? The anger spread like a brush fire, scorching through online forums, comment sections, and even mainstream sports shows. But while that storm brewed, A'ja Wilson kept a serene front. She offered vague remarks about respect and recognition, feeding the narrative that she was left out in the cold. Fans rallied behind her, lashing out at Caitlyn for stealing the spotlight. Yet the entire time, A'ja had her very own sneaker in development. That deal, quietly sealed behind the scenes, lingered under wraps for 2 years. She allowed the narrative to spin out of control, letting Caitlyn become public enemy number 1. One tweeter interview line, something simple like, "Don't worry, my time is coming," could have cooled the tension. But A'ja said nothing. Was she trying to keep the hype around her persona? Was it a power play to maximize headlines when the big reveal finally happened? Whether intentional or not, her silence stoked an inferno of bad blood directed at Caitlyn Clark. On social media, the chatter around A'ja Wilson's supposed neglect reached fever pitch. Hashtags appeared overnight, calling out Nike for disrespect, while certain fans practically declared war on Caitlyn. They questioned her credibility, belittled her achievements, and turned every highlight of hers into a reason to pick fights. Underneath it all was a claim that Caitlyn, an undeserving rookie, was overshadowing established stars. A'ja watched the frenzy grow, occasionally dropping cryptic hints that she felt overlooked. She never named Caitlyn directly. She didn't have to. The conversation always steered itself back to the same question. Why wasn't A'ja Wilson given a sneaker before Caitlyn Clark? The more silent A'ja remained, the more worked up fans became, unknowingly fueling her eventual reveal. For Caitlyn, it wasn't just an online annoyance. It had real-life repercussions. She walked into arenas where fans booed her with extra venom. The WNBA press cycle featured speculation about whether Nike favored her simply for marketing. Meanwhile, A'ja's positive vibe approach shielded her from direct criticism. She never asked for fan hostility, but she never urged them to stop either. And that choice spoke volumes. It's impossible to unravel this story without looking at Nike, the massive sports brand that's been both celebrated and condemned for its role in women's basketball. Early in the year, Nike released a high-profile ad celebrating female athletes. Yet eagle-eyed viewers noticed one glaring omission: Caitlyn Clark, the very player who'd revitalized public interest in the WNBA. The reasoning behind her exclusion remained murky, until the brand tried to fix it at the last minute through a clumsy voiceover edit mentioning Caitlyn. That quick patch-up was about as subtle as a buzzer beater. People questioned how the most talked-about name in women's basketball could be left out of a commercial designed to highlight the game's biggest stars. Nike claimed it was an unintentional slip, but skeptics suspected bigger forces at play. After all, if A'ja Wilson was planning her own shoe launch, how convenient was it for Nike and certain WNBA figures to keep the focus away from Caitlyn? The revised commercial, with its obvious dubbed-in lines, did more harm than good. It signaled that Caitlyn was left off the roster until fans demanded answers. For many, it felt like proof that some within the league, or connected to it, were actively minimizing her achievements to maintain a particular narrative. For decades, the WNBA has struggled for mainstream recognition. It yearned for the day a transcendent star would emerge and spark fresh excitement. Now, that star has arrived in the form of Caitlyn Clark. She packs arenas, smashes attendance records, and dominates sports headlines. Her jersey sales hit unprecedented numbers, and her name draws fans who never before tuned into a women's basketball game. Yet instead of unity and celebration, there's a subtle, and sometimes a not-so-subtle pushback. WNBA veterans like Cheryl Swoops and other icons have raised eyebrows by downplaying Caitlyn's impact, sidestepping her accomplishments, or omitting her entirely from praise. The underlying message seems to be, she hasn't earned her stripes yet. And so the friction grows, pitting newcomers against veterans, and pitting fans against one another. A'ja Wilson sits at the center of this tension, not just because of her own star status, but also because of her approach to the controversy. She may not openly bash Caitlyn, but her silence when others do has fed a sense of betrayal. The I'm unbothered act is starting to look less like calm confidence and more like strategic positioning. Meanwhile, Caitlyn Clark just keeps winning. She puts up near triple-doubles, breaks records, and does it all with a work ethic that's impossible to ignore. Game after game, fans worldwide realize they're witnessing the dawn of a new basketball icon. She draws crowds not only for her flash and style, but for her substance, her ability to dominate and make everyone around her better. Far from entitled, Caitlyn has shown grace under fire, never publicly calling out the people who belittle her or question her achievements. Her focus remains on pushing the sport forward, forging better opportunities for future players, and building fan excitement. Ironically, the more critics try to tear her down, the bigger her legend grows. It's that unstoppable rise that has caused the old guard to grow uneasy. Some worry that a rookie overshadowing the league's established stars could disrupt the brand, alliances, hierarchies, and pecking order that have prevailed for years. In the eyes of certain veterans, Caitlyn's massive popularity feels more threatening than inspiring. In the midst of this drama, the Indiana Fever stand poised to become a super team. They're gathering young, hungry players, including Caitlyn Clark and other standouts who can match the current titans of the league. Their front office quietly orchestrates trades and drafts that look brilliant on paper and could be unstoppable on the court. A'ja Wilson's Las Vegas empire? It might not be bulletproof forever. Kelsey Plum has already made moves that people interpret as subtle digs at her former team. Injuries have weakened parts of the roster, and the overshadowing wave of fresh stars is gaining steam, primed to take the league to a new chapter. If the WNBA's old guard continues to see Caitlyn as competition rather than collaboration, they might lose more than just a few games. They might lose their once unchallenged stronghold on the league's narrative. That's why so many eyes are glued to Indiana. If Caitlyn and the Fever start crushing the competition and grabbing headlines, the entire power dynamic flips. And with a rising star as charismatic and unstoppable as Caitlyn, the shift could be permanent. When A'ja Wilson revealed she'd locked in her shoe deal 2 years ago, it did more than just embarrass fans who had rallied on her behalf. It exposed a deeper double standard. The silent tactic worked for A'ja, boosting her image as a victim of disrespect, while Caitlyn shouldered the blame. Now that the truth is out, no one is rushing to correct the record or apologize. But here's the twist. Caitlyn Clark doesn't need an apology. She's already proven her worth by dominating the court, drawing huge audiences, and changing the conversation about women's basketball. If anything, all the hostility thrown her way has only magnified her star power. The WNBA is at a crossroads, and fans are watching to see whether it embraces its new icon or continues to let internal politics and old loyalties overshadow the sport's future. One thing is certain, the next season will be unlike any other. Will A'ja Wilson and the Her Circle maintain their stronghold, or will a rising generation, led by Caitlyn Clark, seize control and forge a new era? And if it is the latter, can the WNBAs finally unite behind an undeniable superstar? Or will the simmering tensions tear the league apart, just as it's starting to break through to the mainstream? Nobody knows for sure, but one thing's clear. What A'ja Wilson just did isn't a one-time shock. It's the beginning of a seismic shift that could change women's basketball forever. Stay tuned, because the game has only begun to heat up. Thank you for watching. If this lit a spark in you, share your thoughts below. Let's see where this conversation takes us, because if the WNBA wants to reach new heights, it's going to have to confront the truths that came to light when A'ja dropped her bombshell, and how Caitlyn Clark became the league's most polarizing and promising star.